All About Writing with Ben and Sara.
Welcome to All About Writing, the podcast that covers everything about the world of writing from the inside out. This is episode 67, part 11 on our series on getting started. I'm Sara, here with my co-host Ben, who is an award-winning best-selling author and ghostwriter, editor, and publisher.
I'm Ben, here with my co-host Sara, who is an award-winning best-selling author, screenwriter, editor, and TED Talk presenter. And today, we're talking about memoirs. Now, memoirs are a very, very popular style of book. A lot of people like to read them, and a lot of people like to write them. So we thought we'd just sort of dive in just a little bit here on what are memoirs and how you should approach them. So, Sara, you've got some experience with this. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I've been really lucky in that I've done workshops with Joyce Maynard, on memoir writing, and also my book Copper, Iron, and Clay, which was out by Maura HarperCollins back in 2020, is part memoir. And it was really funny when I first started writing that book. I had no plans to make it a memoir, and it actually, over the evolution of working with my agent and my editor, became half memoir. And partially to establish my credibility in the topic I was writing about, which was cookware manufacturing and copper and things like that as a smith. But it also kind of became, diving back into my childhood and things like that. So it's really interesting, and something I want to share that I learned working with Joyce was that you have to kind of approach memoir writing it's almost like a therapy session with yourself. But you really need to dive into your instigating incidences as a person. So what type of trauma almost have you been through, or what relationship interactions that have truly shaped your point of view and why you're writing this? What are you sharing that you believe is something that will resonate with many other people, or at least maybe touch on something they experience so that they can go, yeah, I remember having that terrible relationship with my uncle too, or whatever it is. And this is, and I want to preface too, like there's two completely different kinds of memoir writing. There's the memoir writing we do as kind of regular people, and then there's the memoir writing that celebrities do. And these are very different topics, and I don't want to, this is intro to memoir writing. We're going to have other podcasts about memoirs. We're going to bring in guests. We're going to talk a lot about this because it's a very popular genre, as you said, Ben. But I feel like, this is a broad, like, what is a memoir? Not what kinds there are and where that can go, because you can offshoot this. It's not Prince Harry's memoir. This is more regular people memoir. When we're talking about memoir today.
Yeah. And Prince Harry's memoir is an interesting one. I did read an article by his ghostwriter and the process that they went through. And having been a ghostwriter of memoirs myself, and having been the editor of memoirs when I was at a publishing house, I have been through this a few times, and I have the unique experience of working with the subject of the memoir. And the one story that Prince Harry's ghostwriter talked about was they were getting into a real disagreement over how to finish a certain scene where Harry was in military training, and the people who were he was learning how to avoid being captured and so on. And so the training staff were actually being very harsh on him, and one of them made a very derogatory comment about his mother, Princess Diana. And so how did Harry respond to that? And Prince Harry wanted to end the scene in a certain way to show that how he, even in the face of all that adversity, he really stood up for himself. But the memoir author, the ghostwriter, was saying, no, if we want this scene to land, we have to cut that, and we have to end it here with this sort of, this different ending. And Prince Harry didn't want to do it that way because, that wasn't an accurate reflection of what had happened, and it wasn't the point he wanted to get across. And the ghostwriter had to say, you've just got to trust me. I know what I'm doing to tell your story, and this particular scene has got to work this way. And the ghostwriter says how he thought that he'd been fired. He thought he'd lost the contract, and that was it. It was done. And finally, Prince Harry thought about it and went, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, we'll change it. And so the point he was making is that, and this is the point that I want to make after all that, is that as the person helping the subject of the memoir write their memoir, my job is not just to tell your story. A memoir is not just this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. No, we are still telling a story here. We are making a point about your life if you're the subject of the memoir, and this is the message we want to get across. So we are not going to tell everything about your life. We're going to pick certain events, certain things that weave a story. And I want everyone to understand here, I'm not suggesting that we are lying or that we're leaving things out or that we're whitewashing. Not at all. We want to be as authentic as we possibly can. The real goods, the real story, the pain, the agony, the joy, everything. But we just don't have room to tell everything. So we have to pick. Okay, we're going to talk about this instance when you were 10, and then this instance when you were 17, because it sort of ties the two into a nice little arc. And how did that launch you to this thing that happened when you were 30? And that's how we're going to tell the story. And so a lot of people I've worked with on memoirs, they get really hung up on, yeah, but that isn't actually how it happened. And I have to say, well, it is from a certain point of view. And we're going to filter that actual scene to make the point that we want, which is factual, but angled a certain way.
And that dovetails exactly into what point I want to make about memoir writing. This is a memoir. This is an autobiography of a certain time period in your life, because obviously you're still halfway through your life, right? And we're going to talk about these years or this arc of time in our lives, right? But anybody reading a memoir has to remember that what we as writers of memoir or editors of memoir are doing is that is one person's point of view, and there is an element of unreliable narration that comes with memoir writing because you're presenting the facts as you see them. You are one point of view of the things that happen and what you took from them. And so that's why it's, autobiographies are like, this is what I would like to present to the world of what happened. Very different from a regular biography, which is going to look at transactions and information and written records and all the emails or whatever it is, and go, this happened, then this happened. And from there, we can infer that this was this person's point of view of what happened and this person's point of view and the political consequences or the social economic issues. And they are going to frame a very different story than what a memoir would. And so a memoir in a way is saying, this is what I remember happening. This is how I felt with these things. And this is the arc and the story. I want to tell about it from one person's point of view. So memoir writing is interesting that way. I mean, I've read some very unique memoirs by very unique women. One actually is not well known, but it's known around here. It's called Good Time Party Girl. And it is about a woman who lived in Milwaukee. She ran the Sunshine Club. It was during Prohibition. And she tells her story about her life and who she rubbed shoulders with. And it's a fascinating read. But when you start to piece together the reality and what she omitted, you get a very different picture of what really might have happened. So I always like to say memoir is just, it's someone's preferred look, what I want the world to see and hear about me. And I think that's just an element to memoir writing that kind of is part of the genre. An intro to memoir writing is you or whoever is writing that memoir presenting a specific point of view of facts that they want to project. And therefore it is also a story, to bring it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is my story is kind of what the memoir is.
Yeah.
This is how I want to tell the story. Now, again, I encourage anyone who is memoir writing, be honest, be transparent. Don't be afraid to show the bad along with the good, but remember that you're still writing this memoir for a purpose because you do want to get a message across. Whatever that message is, you are trying to make a point here, and you're using your life experiences as support to that point. So there are a lot of things that you have done in your life that are not relevant to that point. So we may not talk about them, and it's not that they aren't good, it's not that they aren't important to you, but they're not important to what we're saying. So I encourage everyone as you sit down to write your memoir, what am I trying to say here? What is the message that I want my readers to take away from this? What lesson do I want to teach with this? And what from my life supports that message. Um,
Yeah.
I just a couple of weeks ago had to sit through um, an afternoon of a retired general came to talk to us at the naval school, and we didn't know why he was coming. We didn't know what he was coming to talk about. And after 3 hours, I realized he didn't know either, and he just kind of. I mean, he was a good speaker, right? In that he was very charismatic and was able to shoot from the hip, but he just kind of told us all about his career and this and that and blah, what he did and at headquarters and it was weird because I was engaged and then I could follow what he was saying. I didn't wasn't getting lost, but I guess as a storyteller myself, I was kind of like, yeah. So what's your point? Like good for you. As my boss said, well, we sure discovered how amazing that guy is because he told us over and over again how amazing he is. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So, and that's an example of someone who no doubt has a lot to teach us. Very interesting, very accomplished person, but he didn't have the ability to think, okay, this is the message that I'm giving to these junior officers who are at school. This is the lesson I want to teach them. This is the thing I want them to take away from this. It was more just a shooting from the hip, and it's kind of a waste of our time, frankly. And I've read a few memoirs like that too, where the person is basically just blah and spewing everything onto the page. And so I encourage you to really think about what is the point I'm trying to make here with this memoir and why am I writing it?
Well, and to that point, sometimes the point is truly to set the story straight from your point of view.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it is that message, an inspirational message, overcoming adversity or trauma message, or
Mhm.
things like that. But it's so interesting. I mean, in a way, some people that I've met over the course of working with many different people, a lot of people write memoir, and a lot of people truly feel like what they've done in their life is of interest to people, but really what they're doing is they would like to record almost like the journal of their life for the
Hmm.
posterity of their family.
Hmm.
And it's not really, once you start talking to them and you get down to the tacks of exactly what they're doing and why, that's all it is. They want to put down their life story in writing for their family to read because they feel that what they have done is going to be of interest or importance to their future generations, whether or not it is, or it's self-absorption that makes them
Yeah.
think that it's that important, but it matters to them. But really then all it becomes is kind of journal entries, like this
Yeah.
happened and this happened and this happened, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is
Not
still
at all.
writing.
Yep.
But to be perfectly blunt about it, like getting a memoir published, you're not going to get that kind of memoir published. You're going to get a memoir published besides if you're a celebrity or somebody
Mhm.
that just your name will sell, right? By
Yeah.
what juicy details are we going to hear about in this book? If you're trying to write a memoir, it needs to have a much bigger hook than these and crazy things happened in my life. Because honestly, everybody has crazy stuff that happens in their life, and you can spin that up and whatever. There needs to be what you're saying. Like if your goal is, I want to write a memoir and get it published,
Yeah.
like bigger published with a bigger, it needs to have what you're talking about, some sort of broader message, something that can be relatable and useful to people who don't know you and don't know your name.
That's
And
right.
that is kind of the next level of memoir writing. Besides just getting your story down, it's the next that next step that's going to elevate your memoir to something bigger and bolder than just your life story.
Yeah. And I'd like to just reiterate what you said, Sarah, that there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to write a book just to capture your story, maybe for
Yeah.
your family. Like nothing wrong. That's great. A lot of people do that. And
Yep.
I have certainly worked with people as an editor that that's what they want to do. And I do tell them at the start, okay, we're not taking this to a publisher, right? Like, nope, I just want to print 20 copies that I want to give to my grandkids. I'm like, great, brilliant. I am
Yep.
on board. I will help you do that.
Yeah.
So as long as you have your expectations set at the beginning, so if you are out there listening and thinking, oh, I was thinking of writing a memoir that I would actually like to get published, great. If you have a lot of interesting things that you've done and you have a message that you want to get across, absolutely. But just remember, you're going to be leaving out a lot of details in your life because you're going to focus on the through line that makes the point that you want to make. And that's the key to try and grasp.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, that's like a perfect place to stop. Intro to memoir writing. We are going to be doing additional in-depth podcasts, like I said, with guests on memoir writing. So I think this is any last thoughts, Ben? You're good. All right. Thumbs up. All right. Well, then that's our show for today, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more of our chats or our future guests. Please feel free to leave a review, which helps us a ton. And don't forget, you can find Ben at ben@rcoles.com as well as on Facebook and Instagram.
And you can catch up with Sarah at sarahdahlman.com and on Instagram. Thanks for joining us today. Please reach out if there are any topics you'd like us to cover, and we'll see you again when we next chat all about writing.
This has been All About Writing with Ben and Sara.